Rebecca's interview, she's such a creative person that we wanted to show that through our photography and kind of approach as well. So we filmed her outside, and we have the white background to represent the structure and kind of that box she felt like she always was pushed and shoved into throughout her life. And then behind that white backdrop, we have the open fields, the yellow fields, to represent that freedom and that space for her to find her truth.
Mental health really means to me finding peace in your everyday life, although knowing that that is going to alter at times too. Especially if you're someone who struggles with anxiety and depression, peace does not necessarily mean feeling calm all the time. I think it's learning how to deal with hard things in a way that makes things easier to handle and makes you the best version of yourself. So. It begins in a few different spots. I have a relationship with medication. I was on medication for a little while. I have had a relationship with therapy. I've seen several different therapists, and I guess I can start with the medication part of it. I was going through a really deep depression, and my relationship with medication really started when I went to New York and I visited a friend. I was going through a really deep depression at the time. So much so I had a lot of suicidal ideation. And I think one of the things with depression is you start to think it's normal to feel that way. And you start to think that it's okay to feel that way. One of my friends was training to be a social worker, and she and I were in her room, and she was talking to me, and I said, sometimes I really just want to kill myself. And she said, why don't you? And I said, because I'm a coward. And I think it was in that moment that I realized the only reason I'm not is I'm scared I'm going to fail. And that's when I knew that this wasn't healthy anymore. My relationship with my body and with my mind was not at a healthy place, and that I needed more help than I thought I needed. And so I decided to go on medication, which I did. And that was a whole process. I've been on a lot of different medications, and I'm actually off medication now, which is pretty cool. But part of the reason I got off was I gained 40 pounds on medication. So there's actually so many parts to every part of depression and medication. Right. And gaining that much weight was in and of itself also depressing. Right. So I had to work with that. Trigger, yeah, especially with someone like me, because I've struggled with my weight my whole life, and my perception of myself and body dysmorphia and all that fun stuff. So gaining 40 pounds to someone who already thinks they're overweight was a lot. And but I actually think it was great that I did. It was great that I gained the weight, because it forced me to start a fitness process. And when I started that, I was actually able to get off medication. So okay. It was kind of a road that I didn't foresee coming. And yeah, it's really tough, and it can be really discouraging. There's so many side effects that can be bad. There's sexual side effects, there's weight side effects, there's withdrawal if you go off of it. So the first one I was on wasn't quite working. I think it was Effexor. And then I changed to Cymbalta. And Cymbalta was the one that I felt okay with. So the great thing about medication is it makes the things in your life that you feel like you can't handle manageable. And I think that's super important if you're in a place where you need it. And there are people who need it for their whole lives, and that's fine. I definitely needed it when I took it. And but Cymbalta, the bad side effect for me was I gained 40 pounds, and I was definitely at an obese level for my weight, my height and my weight. And so then I changed to Wellbutrin, which is actually an appetite suppressant. And Wellbutrin I had a really great relationship with. That was the one that worked the best for me. And the only reason I got off of Wellbutrin was I accidentally took myself off, which happens to a lot of people. I've talked to a lot of people who just forget, and then they keep forgetting. It's almost like you're forgetting and you're kind of testing yourself. And I forgot for a week, and then I put myself back on Wellbutrin, and I started throwing up, and I started having crazy mood swings. Mood swings are a big part of them too, where it's, for instance, something that would normally kind of tick you off. Actually, you get so infuriated that you can't control yourself. So that was the kind of mood swings I was having. I had a psychiatrist through all of this, and I talked to him about possibly going off. I was exercising 4 to 5 times a week, and I had changed my diet dramatically. And those two things together, I think, plus I got a therapist who was I had a therapist. He was a really good man, but he wasn't working for me, and that's another part of mental health, because not every therapist fits. And but I found a therapist who I think I was in the right place to listen, and she was in the right place to give. And that, combined with all of the physical health I was doing, allowed me to get off my medication. So depression, for a lot of people, and for me, I'm going to keep it a little bit general because of personal reasons, but depression happens when you're trying to fit into a box that you can't fit in. Or for me, that's what it was. And maybe it's a box other people are trying to push you into that you're not fitting in. And I felt torn between two different things, two different worlds, and it was killing me. And I couldn't handle it. There were times that I got catatonic, couldn't even talk, and there was a lot of suicidal thoughts. There was times where I knew there was a gun around and I thought about shooting myself. And so for me, it was hurting the people I love, I think. Feeling like I couldn't be myself, but I couldn't be myself enough for anyone. No party. And I think something people without depression don't understand is they sometimes see depression or suicide as a very selfish thing. And if you're in that deep of a depression, it's actually, you think you're doing better for the people you love by removing yourself from the equation. So you get to a place where you start thinking, I can do better for everybody if I just wasn't here anymore, and their life would be better and whole. And it's a lie. It's a lie that you tell your mind. Your mind tells you, your anxiety tells you, and it can be really scary. But I don't think it comes from a place of selfishness. It comes from a place of everything is so all-encompassing. The only way out is one way, I think finding a support system is a huge part of mental health. If you don't, it doesn't have to be your family. It can, your friends are your family, and it can be your family, and it sometimes is your family, but it really, you have to create the people who are going to really bring you that peace that you need, I think.
The pausing is good and just reflecting kind of on it all.
Yeah. But I really did forget one of the main things that helped me with my recovery, and I've talked to a lot of people about it, and it's probably very annoying for everyone who is my friend on Facebook because I post about him too much, and it's my dog. But Bran is my dog, and the worst week of my life is when I got Bran, and it was a really, really tough week. And I was sitting outside of a movie theater and with my boyfriend, and I had been talking about getting an emotional support animal, and I have never had a pet ever. Nothing. I used to pretend I had pets, but I never had any pets. He said, let's look at an app. Let's see if there's an app for it, because I'd gone to a lot of rescues and I hadn't really connected, and I couldn't get a pit bull at the time because I was in an apartment, and pit bulls are everywhere in California in the rescues. So, and they're great dogs, by the way. But So we downloaded an app, and it was sort of like a Tinder for dogs. You kind of swipe right for your dog. And I swiped right on Marley, who is actually a brand. And there are so many reasons why having an animal can save your life. I really think it can. There was definitely a time when I was in my bedroom and he was curled up next to me, and I thought about taking pills to kill myself, and I looked down and I was like, he would have nobody without me. This dog relies on me, and it's my responsibility to take care of him. So if I talk about him a lot, it's because I genuinely believe he saved my life several times. Practically speaking, having a dog is amazing for depression because it forces you outside, which is great for depression and anxiety. And when you pet a dog, it releases oxytocin, which is good for you. And also, especially for people with anxiety, having a schedule is really important. And having an animal puts you on a schedule because you have to feed them at a certain time and you have to walk them at a certain time. So there are so many practical byproducts of having an animal that actually are just things you should be doing for your depression anyway, but then you have an animal and now you also have this source of love. And I've said this to people, I think Bran is the only thing that has never left me. So he's a really good boy. Yeah, I mean, I grew up in a very religious environment, and come here, buddy. Bran. Can you sit? There you go. I grew up in a really religious environment, and I think there's beautiful things about religion. I think it creates a community, and it can be really wonderful. I also think that it can be really suffocating, and you really have to be in the right place for it. Somebody asked me recently why I wear less modest clothing, and I don't think I understood when I was in religion how wearing modest clothing made me feel, and it made me feel very inferior in a way. Made me dislike my body, and now I wear less modest clothing, and part of that is because I work really hard to be fit, so I like to show off the muscles that I have now. So I can see my deltoid or my back muscles or things like that, and I'm so proud of the work that I've put in, and I don't think it's a vanity thing as much as it's I don't think it's a vanity thing as much as it's being prideful of something that you've put work into, the same way I would be prideful of like a painting. But I think I had a body shame complex with modest clothing, and for some people they find strength through wearing those kinds of clothes. I felt weak. I felt covered up. I felt, because I'm a more curvy person, I felt uglier because those clothes don't always look good on curvy people. And so I think religion is a double-edged sword. I think for some people, it provides that stability. It provides those guidelines that they need. And then for some people, it's like a cage. Right now, I struggle a lot with what I'm doing for myself and not what I'm doing for anyone else. And how can I find self-worth and peace through my relationship with God and my relationship with religion, which can be tenuous at times. And I think in my deepest depressions, there was a lot of anger at God, for sure. And you can blame him for a lot of things. But he also gives you the good things, and I think it's tough. I think religion's a tough one. For me in particular, it's tough. I'd say that for sure. It's tough. It is not an easy road. Has not been an easy road for me. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. I don't want to make a blanket statement about it.
Right.
Because some people, it's really the most beautiful thing for them.
Yeah, and
I think really surround yourself with people who are understanding and kind and that are gonna be there for you no matter what. I have friends who completely disagree with my lifestyle, who are my best friends and would be there for me in a second. And I think knowing that is so helpful. I think one of the main things is knowing when you need help. You really have to know, and you have to.
How do you know?
How do you know? I think a lot. If you're getting to a place that's so dark that suicide is really the option that you are seeking and it's constantly in your head, there is nothing shameful about taking medication. There is nothing shameful about therapy. There is nothing shameful about talking to people and getting help. And I think, unfortunately, there's a huge taboo on all of it. And I've tried to be really open with people about it because it really shouldn't be a taboo. If you break your arm, you put a cast on, and if you need help with your mental health, then you get some medication or you get the help that you need. And no one with any worth would look down on you for that. And I think maybe there's an old school way of thinking that has trouble with it, but that's exactly what it is. It's an old school way of thinking. I think there's an idea of you buck up and you get through it, and you just have to be strong and you'll be able to push through it, but sometimes you can't, and sometimes you have a chemical imbalance and you never will be able to do it, and you might need medication for the rest of your life. And I have told my loved ones that if I get to a place where the depression is that bad again, I will go right back on medication. I happen to be able to work through it that way. I'm very, very lucky, but not everyone is. And if you're missing a chemical, then you got to replace it. And I think the old school way of thinking is, number one, they were unfamiliar with this kind of medicine. It is pretty new. And then, like I said, there's almost like kind of like this "you're stronger than this" attitude. But sometimes being strong is knowing you need help. I don't think it's strong to keep hurting yourself. Like, that's not strength. That's giving into your pain in a way that's only gonna cause you harm, I think. Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's true. Therapies can be cheaper than you think. I went to a therapy place that actually they worked with you and your income. And I'll say this, like, I've been to a lot of therapists. I've probably been to like 6 therapists in my life. And I think the most important thing is having a really good mindset when you get into, you don't have to. Sometimes therapy is just verbal diarrhea. Sometimes it's just, this is the shit that I've gone through. This is the trauma that I'm currently going through. And I just need to talk about it and cry about it and have a support system and pay you to do it. And I think that's perfectly legitimate. This last therapist that I've had, I came in with goals. I came in and I said, I have anxiety at this, this, and this. And she gave me real actions to take. She gave me books on things that would help me understand parts of myself better, and things like the 5 A's, which is it's a self-awareness thing with your anxiety and coming to a place of acceptance with your anxiety and even appreciation of why it's there. And appreciating your anxiety is one of the hardest things you can do, and but it's so important, because usually your anxiety comes from a place, or for me, it came from a place of worrying about people I love and worrying about the future, and knowing that the reason I'm feeling upset is because I have a lot of love to give, So true, yeah. So therapy is what you make it, and you might need a different therapist at one point in your life and a different one later, and you might need medication and you might not need medication, you know? Also, just people that are gonna, someone told me recently that toxic people are people that give you no room to change. And I think that that's true. I think it's a true statement, because the people who will never allow you to change, even if it's, it doesn't have to be abuse. It can be just hurting you by judging you, or which may in and of itself be sort of abusive, but if they never allow you to change, then you're stuck. And I think that's when depression starts to get really bad. It's when you feel stuck.